Hi, folks. Welcome back to Never on the Back Foot. India has conquered Champions Trophy 2025. You can see the smile plastered across mine and Sanchit's face. I think we're going to be smiling through the course of this discussion because it's happened after 13 long years. Phone lock screens have changed, laptop wallpapers, everything because of how amazing the win was. So, yeah, through this discussion, we will be analyzing the final, India's road to glory, and a lot of other key facets. For me, Sanchit was like a no-brainer for this episode because his Instagram was, our go-to for all his reactions, BTS stuff, and everything. If given a chance, man would have traveled to Dubai himself, but he is doing all of his work from home. So it is really nice to see your content, Sanchit. So yeah, I'll probably just start off with your first thoughts on India's campaign at the just concluded Champions Trophy. We are champions. It's going to take a while for it to register, but how have you been doing?
Well, you know what, Neha? I mean, I did get an opportunity to travel to Dubai, but I was actually skeptical because I'm actually planning a little bit down the road. I'm actually saving up my money for the 2027 World Cup. So I thought, ki why to spend money here because I want to save it for that big one. But now I'm feeling that, क्या बोलते हैं उसको missing that moment kind of a thing because I'm seeing
FOMO
all my
type, है ना?
friends.
Hmm.
FOMO, exactly, FOMO. Like, I'm so lost of words because what has happened in the last 24 hours that I'm not able to string sentences. I think you know me really well, how I go about speaking things. But whatever that has happened in the last 24 hours, you said we are the champions. It has still not sunk in pretty well. But the feeling, I mean, going unbeaten, losing all the tosses, and doing what was required, and especially against all the circumstances. We were seeing all the talks happening beyond beyond what was happening on the pitch, with everyone against us, all the pitch drama, home advantage. We'll talk about it, I'm sure of it, in this podcast, but to do that, it's so satisfying.
Absolutely, man. You pretty much took the words from my mouth because my next pointer was going to be about the chatter, about India playing all of their matches in Dubai due to the security and geopolitical reasons. At one point, it felt like everyone was just ganging up on India. I mean, the players are not at fault here. There are a lot of other forces and factors that have to be taken into consideration, and a lot of people feel next to India's name, there's always going to be an asterisk, and that has a lot more meaning and everything. But Sanchit, again, because of the fact that India played all their matches in Dubai and not Pakistan, does that kind of change your view of how we are going to look at India's triumph? I mean, it still stays the same, right?
I think you were right about it. I mean, it's not clearly the players' fault. I mean, you only play what's in front of you, and I think the players did a remarkable job. Yes, I mean, people will have their skeptical thoughts about the tournament's structure, the format of the tournament, with India not having to travel a single game. But I don't think it's the reason why India has won. I mean, if you look at the conditions, if you ask the Indian players maybe 1 month before the tournament, would they have taken these kind of conditions? I'm sure many of them would have said no. I think many of the players would have wanted to play on those tracks in Pakistan with the way that they were assisting the pace bowlers, and also for batting. I think whatever that was happening in Dubai, it was clearly a difficult task, and I feel that. Whatever has happened, but India were really not like gifted a Champions Trophy win, according to me, because they lost all the tosses in the tournament, and we have seen those kind of struggling games against Australia in the semi-finals, New Zealand in the final, and also in the group stage game against Pakistan also, I guess, when we were struggling a little bit in the first innings, but we always crawled back. I think this team is structured in such a way that you don't really rely on one player or two players. Everyone from all their departments contributed. I think that's what makes it a very successful tournament, according to me.
Absolutely. It felt like a team effort, with different players stepping up every single time, the team kind of needed them. A lot of people felt, KL Rahul at number six is going to be such an underutilized asset. But we saw him, right, come to the party every single time and deliver. Again, I'll get your thoughts on that a little later in our discussion. But again, Sanchez, just looking at the opposition that India was playing, it's the Kiwis, right? We've seen how much they've troubled India in the past. Case in point, the 2019 World Cup being one, the World Test Championship final, and everything. But what do you think India did differently this time to, kind of get past them? There's a lot of like strategy and thought process, no, this time.
Exactly. I think it was similar to what we did in the 2023 semi-final. I think we've always been a good ICC tournament side, according to me. Yes, we had those kind of boogie teams, just like New Zealand, and those situations when we somehow fumbled in the knockouts, but that was all about mentality thing. I think on paper, if you compare all those matches of India versus New Zealand, 80 or 90% of the time you would have found that Indian team was better in terms of squad strength. It was just that New Zealand had the better of us mentally somehow. But I think that jinx was broken in 2023, and since then I think we have been beating them four times, three times in a row, and I think it was just about getting the monkey off our backs at that time. And I'm sure that the plan that we laid down for the Kiwis this time was similar to what we did in 2023. It was just to attack their new ball bowlers, and what Rohit Sharma did in the final. I mean, to set the tone straight away, as he did, kept on doing since 2023 World Cup. That was, I think, the need of the hour, because in Dubai we have seen that it's better to get runs up early with the new ball. Then when once the spinner comes in, then it gets quite stale, and that is exactly what happened yesterday. Also, I think many of us were having our hearts in our mouth during that 20 to 30 over period. But just because of the start that we kept on receiving in this tournament, I think that was the X factor for India in terms of why we're so successful.
Yeah, and I think you yourself tweeted this, right? That India's finally got the monkey off their back, and now that they've won these, back-to-back ICC tournaments, it really puts them in good stead. You have all of your teams, kind of doing well. Perhaps, the World Test Championship final. But I think if India had qualified, we would have seen things panning out very differently. But we will still take our wins with a lot of pride and all of that. But again, Sanchit, just looking at this final, right? I mean, what did you make of the toss, right? The kind of role it had to play. I think pre-match, there's a lot of discourse on India being better poised to chase down a total rather than batting first, because you've seen how the jitters can kind of get to them. But again, New Zealand won the toss and kind of opted to bat first. What did you make of that call? I mean, as an Indian fan, you were probably very happy that hey, India's chasing. But did you at some point feel, hey, maybe if India batted first, they could have probably made merry on that surface?
Honestly, I mean, with the kind of toss record that we have been having in the last 15 or 16 games in a row, at one point, I mean, till the semi-final, I was like, yeah, जाने दो वैसे भी toss जीतने तो नहीं वाले. So I just kept assuming, and I've kept that in my mind ever since, that we are not anyways gonna win the toss. And I think that played a really big part in our teams, because in Dubai, it just because there is no due factor that much as compared to other venues, I think that played a vital role, because India were ready to do both the things. And I think in this tournament we've chased well, we even defended well against New Zealand in one of the league games. So India were ready to do whatever it took in the final, and I think losing the toss actually reduced that headache kind of a situation in terms of the planning for the game. And I'm happy that I was actually hoping that we lose the toss in that game, because we really don't want to create an extra headache what we wish to do after we win the toss. But it all worked out well. I wanted us to chase on this wicket, because in terms, like, when it's a final, and especially on a fresh wicket, you never know how the wicket is going to behave. So it's better to, like, try your luck with your spin bowlers. And I think having four spinners in the 11 and having a dry wicket under the heat of Dubai, I think that helped India really well. And so that is why I wanted us to ball first, and it all worked out well. So
Yeah, I think this is again one of the times, like you said, just wanted India to lose the toss, because many times Rohit Sharma at the toss has like admitted that, even I wouldn't know what I wanted to do. So it's okay. Just leave things in, the hand of God, I think, or like an ultimate force up there. Because again, looking at New Zealand, the kind of start they had, it was electric, right? And at one point felt, oh my God, are they going to make like a 300 and it's going to be games that match for India? But somewhere, India pulled things back, got those key wickets and everything. And even looking at the total, right, India managed to chase that 252 down with ease. I mean, I don't know, I say ease with, the foresight of having seen that very tension filled chase, Sanchit. But did you think that New Zealand really kind of challenged India and it was game on? And had they posted a slightly, bigger total, things could have possibly gone south?
maybe. But if you look at the trend of this Champions Trophy matches featuring India, I mean, except for Bangladesh, who I think collapsed in the first 10 overs, and then they managed to put on a good total while recovering in the middle phase. I think all the matches, even all the opponents, had the same tactic: just go hard against India's new bowler, and then once the spinner comes, they will take their chances to, like, have those ones and twos. But it clearly did not. I think the spinners of India were really too good for all the opponents, even New Zealand for that matter. So I think even in the Australia game, in the semi-final, Travis had wanted to do the same, but unfortunately, when Varun Chakravarti came, he got dismissed for the first ball of his spell. So similarly for New Zealand, Kuldeep Yadav, the magician, who we really wanted to finally step up in a big knockout game, he managed to do that. That wicket of Rachin Ravindra, my God, I think that set the tone for India. And I was actually worried that New Zealand, because New Zealand had played on this kind of a track in the league stage, so they knew exactly what kind of a total would be good enough to challenge India and what lengths to ball. So I was worried that if they managed to put on maybe 280, 290, especially in the final, it would be a little bit of a nervy chase. But I'm so glad that did not happen. At one stage, I felt that maybe we could have not let the target go about 250. I'm encouraged to Bracewell. I think he was absolutely great down the order. He managed to actually put New Zealand in a position where they could actually challenge with the bowlers. But I think with this Indian side, 250, 260 was always going to be not enough, especially with the kind of depth that we have and experience down the order and middle order players who knows how to play spin well. So 250 was never going to be enough.
Yeah, I mean, it clearly didn't seem like, that sort of an uphill task that India would not be able to surmount. Because let's start with Rohit Sharma, right? His knock of 76 kind of really set the tone. And we saw, after his wicket fell, India's middle order really had to sort of fight through. This was one of those matches where Virat also was dismissed early on. But again, Sanjay, you would categorize this win as an absolute team effort, right? Especially in the batting side of things. We had our batters come to the party, and you feel like this is a much more cherished win in that sense, no?
Absolutely. I mean, as you mentioned about Rohit Sharma's innings, I mean, till the 20th over mark, I think we were absolutely cruising in the run chase, and we were actually having talks ki kahan pe party kare, where should we go? Should we go to Marine Lines? Because this match is anyways gonna be over before the 40th over. But then when Shubman got out with that, I mean, Glenn Phillips, he's a superman on the field. I mean, I even tweeted about him like 2, 3 times already, and whenever now he takes a catch, I'm like, okay, ये तो normal है उसके लिए. So it's like the entire New Zealand team, especially Phillips, are like Superman on the field. But after that Gill's wicket, I think I felt a little bit tense because then Virat Kohli's dismissal was actually not on the cards because I felt at that kind of a situation, it was Kohli's game. All he had to do was have a good 40-50 knock and then India would be cruising through. But when Kohli got out, I was really worried because Rohit Sharma was in a position where he did not really fancy that kind of a role because he in this team, in this kind of a setup, Rohit's role is to just blunt out the new ball, go hard in the power play, and then let the middle order take over. But when Kohli got out and when Rohit was on in his 70s, he was the one who had to take the mantle to play the longer kind of an innings. So he and then we had that kind of a situation where I think we did not score a single run for 20 balls. And this was the period where I think Bracewell and Santner were bowling in tantrum. So that was the period I think I felt a little bit of jitters. I mean, the run chase was going nowhere, and even the required run rate was dropping and getting higher and higher, and it got to 6 runs per over, and that's when Rohit got out. So after that, whatever that happened, I think it was all about Clutch Pandya, KL Rahul with his calm mind, Shreyas Iyer who managed to like get that momentum back on our side. So the middle order actually had to strive their way to deliver this trophy to us. So I'm really really happy with this team effort, as you rightly mentioned, because it was not just one man carrying us. It was a complete team effort because apart if it wasn't for that middle order savings, it could have been a different story.
No, that's such a true thing you say because when you look at India's 2013 campaign, you think of select names, right? Jadeja, Shikhar Dhawan, Virat Kohli, them just doing their thing. But these are the names that really spotlight. But this time around, it felt like a more wholesome effort. Each player had like a story with that trophy, and you could see it in the post-match celebrations and all of that. Actually, let's take up this comment. Shreyas Iyer actually had a very beautiful tournament, something which won't be highlighted. But for me, he was the man of the tournament. Again, Sanchit, your thoughts on Shreyas Iyer, the kind of tournament he's had. Man does not have a BCCI contract now. I think it will change very soon. But it's been such a stellar tournament for him, right from that England ODI series, where he was kind of not in the contention for the playing 11, thanks for an injury that happened, to Virat Kohli and everything. But it's been just very a dreamy set of months, no, for Shreyas Iyer.
Absolutely, Neha. I mean, if you go back maybe 5 or 6 years down the line, especially the build up towards the 2019 World Cup, every talk show, every expert analysis about India used to be about who would be India's number four. Who is that answer to India's number four option? And we always used to try out these people. I think Raidu was tried out, Rahane was tried out, even Dhoni was batting at number four in one of the series, and Kohli was also pushed down to number four in one of the series as well. So we really had no option during that time. But then came Shreyas Iyer, and since he had that position locked in, we never looked back. Even if you look at his 2023 World Cup tournament, the kind of performances that they put, I think he was always going to go underrated, because whenever Shreyas Iyer performs, there is always one or the other player who outshadows him in this batting lineup. But that doesn't really give. That really doesn't. I think
Yeah, I think we lost Sanchit there briefly, but till he joins us back, I mean, let's take this other comment as well. Yeah, Varun Chakravarti selection for Jaiswal was a complete masterstroke from zero in 2021 T20 World Cup to hero of this Champions Trophy winning team. Yeah, man, completely agree with you here. 9 matches in 3 wickets is spectacular. And yeah, I think Sanchit has joined us back, although we can't see him right away. But Sanchit, hope you can see us and hear us. But yeah, Jay, this is again a fair point.
yeah.
Yes.
I think I'm glad that the glitches are happening in my live stream and not with India, because it used to be with India's case in knockouts. So I guess I'm the one who is having those choking kind of situation in my live stream. But yeah, so sorry for the disturbance. I was talking about Shreyas Iyer. I mean, I feel that since the 2023 World Cup, whatever that he was doing, I feel that it was just a moment of time for him. And whatever that had happened with the BCCI contract, it was out of the field action, but we are so glad to have him. And especially in this tournament, he proved that why he deserves to be in that number 4 role. And this is such a good sign for India going forward as well, because we never know with the kind of the ODI team that we have who is going to play that 2027 World Cup. But one thing is for sure, I'm very sure that Shreyas Iyer has his eyes on that trophy, and he wants us to deliver that World Cup, which we really missed out on in 2023. So I'm so happy with his performance, and I agree with what Jehan had to say in the comment. He deserves to be man of the tournament, because whatever that he did and the kind of situation that he came out to bat, it was very difficult, and he always managed to put India out of the problems. And Shreyas Iyer definitely deserves to be that one of the greats for India in this particular format.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely such a crucial cog in India's been. Very excited to see how he kind of, fares for that 2027 World Cup. I mean, age is clearly on his side. Hopefully, we will see Rohit or Virat, if not one of them, at least both of them, featuring till that World Cup. Actually, let's get your thoughts on this, Sanchit. One of the, I don't know, I won't call it rumor mills, but one of the more predictable things was we thought one of the players might retire, or both of them, after this Champions Trophy high and all of that. Actually, even Jadeja for that matter. But again, just looking ahead at the vision for the 2027 World Cup, here's the billion-dollar question: do Virat, Rohit, and Jadeja feature in your playing 11, or is it too soon to be kind of having this discussion? And let's just savor this one.
I think the entire press conference thing after the win, that I really answered most of the doubts, because we were actually wondering who would be the one who would hang up their shoes after the Champions Trophy win. But I think what Rohit had to say, that none of them are retiring in typical Rohit Sharma fashion. I'm sure I will not be allowed to say that live on the stream what he exactly meant during what was captured. But I think that really eases off the worries that most of the Indian fans have had. But according to me personally, I mean, I agree. I kind of agree with you, because it's still too soon to actually wonder about the 2027 World Cup. Because I did read one tweet that India are set to play 24 ODIs from now till May 2027, which is just 6 months before the World Cup that is scheduled. And after that, of course, we are going to play 5 to 6 more building up to the World Cup. So 30 odd ODIs and building up to the World Cup. Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, Jadeja, it's really difficult to say who would actually feature him, because it's 1.5 year is a long time to actually ponder upon. So all we can do right now is just keep on enjoying the ride and keep on enjoying the highs, because we never know that when the end would come. And for players like Kohli, Rohit Sharma, and Jadeja, who are in their mid 30s right now, 6 months is also a big gap, because anything can happen in 6 months. So all we could do is just enjoy the present and hope that these stalwarts of our Indian cricket keep on performing, keep on giving us beautiful memories, because we never know when the end would come.
Yeah, the inevitable end that none of us want to see, but will happen at some point in time. But yeah, Sanchit, I kind of agree with you that probably let's not look into the retirement side of things. It's very personal for each player, and we'll have to figure out where the team is kind of positioned to head. But let's take a few comments. Jay also goes on to add that Varun Chakravarti's selection for Jaiswal was a complete masterstroke, from being a zero in that 2021 T20 World Cup. Everyone talks about his failures there, to the hero of this Champions Trophy winning team. 9 wickets in 3 matches is phenomenal, right? I mean, let's talk about Varun Chakravarti for this moment. man comes out of syllabus, absolutely dominates in the matches that he got for India. Again, such a dream run for him, and he's really making a case for himself, right?
Exactly, and I think I really agree with what Jehan had to say. From zero to World Cup to ICC tournament hero. I mean, it all happened in Dubai back in 2021, the exact place where he was brought in as an unknown prospect against a big team like Pakistan in terms of that matchup. And when it all went round, I felt that he was kind of made a scapegoat just because he was new onto the side. And since then, he was constantly in and out of the team, majorly out of the team. So coming back 3 years later at the same venue as a replacement. He was a replacement, let's not forget. And I think he really deserved this. I mean, Varun Chakravarti, the kind of performances that he's had in recent years, not just for Indian cricket, but also in domestic cricket, apart from IPL, I think that really earned him that call. And he actually matured so much as a bowler. Previously, he used to have just one or two tricks up his pony, but now, with the kind of a matured bowler that he is right now, he understands what the batsman is trying to do and how the batting team is actually planning to play against him. And I think we have to give credits to the management, especially Gautam Gambhir, I think majority of us actually ganged up on him, especially after the Border Gavaskar Trophy. And with all the KKR quota kind of situation that was going around on in the media, that he only favors players who played for KKR, just like Harshit Rana and Varun Chakravarti. Now I think this is the time to actually give praises to Gautam Gambhir, because even Harshit Rana, for that matter, had a good time in this tournament. Yes, he did not play all the matches, but I think whatever matches that he played, he did deliver, especially taking 3 wickets against Bangladesh and had a good run against Pakistan. So Gautam Gambhir, hats off, and also hats off to the management for going with 5 spinners in the squad selection, when I think almost every team in the tournament went with just 1 or 2 spinners. Pakistan, the host, went with just one spinner, knowing that they were going to play in Dubai, and that just shows the kind of a master stroke it was to go with 5 spinners. We did that similarly in USA and West Indies last year, going with 4 spinners for the West Indies leg, and it worked. So I mean, these are the kind of things, these are the kind of bold calls that win you tournaments. And this is what we have to give credit to management and Rohit Sharma for that matter.
Absolutely, and I think Jay's comment also kind of validates what you're saying, that Rohit Sharma's selection of 6 spinners in the squad had raised a lot of questions initially, and that's something I was going to pose you as well. But and we were all laughing on that selection, but I think the way our players have performed kind of just invalidates all of our apprehensions as well. I mean, just looking at the squad composition, right? This time around, if you mark, we had backups for every single player. If our opener got injured, we had KL as a backup opener. You had someone like a Rishabh Pant who was warming the benches. Like, in which world are we living in where Rishabh Pant is warming the bench? But again, Sanjay, just to get your quick thoughts on the squad selection itself. I mean, the spinners dilemma and aspect we've spoken about, but even this, right? Like, it just felt like a very well thought of squad composition. They understood the conditions really well, and it's just a reflection of that, right?
Absolutely. I think I really loved how we actually approached ODI cricket ever since the 2023 World Cup, because I felt that squad was nearly perfect, if not perfect for that matter. And going into the Champions Trophy, I really even I think I had a conversation with all my friends also in terms of squad selection. I think it will be 90% similarly to what it was in 2023 World Cup. Then the bombshell of Bumrah injury happened, and few players going missing here and there. Mohammad Shami's inclusion, whether he's half fit or full fit. But I absolutely agree with what Jehan had to say here. I mean, we had perfect plans for each and every player, and not just in terms of squad depth, but also in terms of player role. I think that is where India actually struggled all these years. I mean, we used to have good squad strength, but in terms of player roles, in terms of identifying which player is suited for which role, that is where we always lagged. If you look at the example of Ravindra Jadeja, absolute quality ODI player, but India used to play him at number 7, where you would argue that Jadeja as a number 7 is really not that effective if you look at it. But Jadeja as a number 8, I mean, that really gives you extra batting depth, especially having someone like an Akshar Patel who can be promoted up the order in terms of a collapse and whatever that he was doing in the last few years. That gave luxury to Team India, and that also eased off pressure of someone like Jadeja, who used to constantly be that kind of a player what Akshar Patel used to do. So Jadeja as a number 8 was a masterstroke, and that gave Jadeja the freedom to do what he does. He did not have enough time with the bat in this tournament, except for the final. So to hit those winning runs to get you the trophy, I think was like a sweet, sweet feeling for him also. I mean, जितना time मिलता है उसमें से I think he played that shot, winning shot, and Jadeja playing that winning shot was actually the perfect thing to happen. So in terms of what I feel that squad depth and role planning was absolutely spot on from Team India, and I think that was the reason why we managed to secure this win.
Yeah, I mean, in a span of 9 months, winning two ICC trophies under different coaches, I don't think this is a statement you'd hear very often. So, due credit to the think tank for getting a lot of things right. And Jay also goes on to add that it's time for Mission 2027 October in South Africa. He lists out all the matches that we will be playing against. And as you said, India is playing those 24 ODIs. So let's see how things kind of play out, because IPL ke baad jo hoga, we can't predict. So it's difficult, look this much ahead. But 24 ODIs is definitely a good sign. India had probably played the least number of ODIs heading into this Champions Trophy, and still ending up emerging as winners speaks volumes about this side, right? Yeah.
Exactly. And somewhere now, if I look back, I think playing the least number of ODIs after 2023 World Cup helped us. Because if we played maybe 10 or 15 more, and if one or two players who were not in contention, they managed to play well, then again the squad selection dilemma would have happened. But just because we played least number of matches, we knew exactly who are the players we should be eyeing out for and what we should be doing. And I think that was like a blessing in disguise for us, because the whatever matches that we played, we had the similar thing in mind, especially the England ODI series. I think it was very clear from the England ODI series only that which are the players who are going to be tried and tested. Arshdeep, we all wanted Arshdeep to play, but I think that England ODI series actually showed that the team management trusts someone like a Harshit Rana and Mohammad Shami to be our seamers. But then playing four spinners directly in the Champions Trophy was actually a X factor that actually got us that those wins on the slower tracks. So everything worked out well, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people felt, like with Jasprit Bumrah not being a part of the Indian setup, it would mean India is heading into the competition a little weak and everything. But as you have been saying, and Jay goes on to add that, including Harshit Rana, was a masterstroke, right? Because he's someone we kind of realized is a massive talent in the IPL, and he has done well consistently in domestic as well, kind of back that. So great signs for Indian cricket, if you have someone who's stepping up to this caliber and doing. He also goes on to add that Harshit Rana has done brilliantly in Bumrah's absence. Again, something that won't be spoken of much. That boy has a lot of potential in him, and he has done well across formats, right? So again, like your thoughts on Harshit Rana, Sanchit, like you've been impressed with whatever little you've seen of him, and grooming him will really bring us a lot of success.
Definitely, yes. I think we have to give credits to Gautam Gambhir again for this matter, because he was actually the villain in terms of the squad selection based on whatever that was happening in media. People were slandering him all across that you're only favoring KKR players, as I mentioned earlier. But Harshit Rana stepped up with the performance that he has had in Champions Trophy, and I agree with what Jay had to say, because very rarely you get players who are all format players. Yes, you get players in terms of batsmen, but very rarely you get ballers who are all format players. And these are the ballers you have to cherish, because it is very difficult to have those kind of ballers who would actually thrive well across all formats. He's yet to be tested that much in Test cricket. Yes, he's played his part in Border Gavaskar Trophy, but I'm very sure that he is going to be a force to reckon with, especially in the whites, more than in the white ball cricket. Because I feel Harshit Rana could be our X factor maybe 5 or 6 years down the line, especially in red ball cricket. So watch out for him. And in overseas tour, he's definitely going to be a player to watch out for.
Absolutely, and we're very excited to see how his talent is groomed. And I hope it's not a situation where he's burnt out and we don't see
Yeah.
him, perform. So fingers crossed to see how he kind of performs. And Sanchit is giving a prediction, so gotta take it seriously and make notes of it. And for all our viewers, you heard it here first. So yeah, just taking a little bit of bragging rights there. But let's also talk about this aspect that Jay brings up, that the only team we aren't playing an ODI series against is Pakistan. Again, it things you can't control, security reasons, geopolitical reasons, and all of that. But again, that's irrelevant, because playing against 8 different countries is a perfect example of proper planning. I mean, look at India's journey, right? Since the last Champions Trophy to this one, we've played like almost all sides, home, overseas, and everything. So again, Sanjay, do you think like Champions Trophy was like a eradicated, like it was a defunct sort of a tournament? It has been brought back to life. But India's ODI template still kind of makes sense, right? We've played a lot of series. I know, like, closer to the Champions Trophy. There weren't a lot of series, but still there was some planning in play, right?
Definitely, yes. I think I agree with what Jayan had to say here. I mean, playing 8 different countries ahead of the Champions Trophy was actually a good preparation. I would say that the 2023 World Cup was a good preparation because I think that set the tone for us in terms of how we want to approach one day cricket and especially white ball cricket for that matter. Because I remember after the 2022 World Cup debacle, Rohit Sharma was slandered quite a lot, and I think Dinesh Karthik asked him a question that what went wrong, and Rohit just answered simply that we need to change. And boy, did he change. I mean, he changed everything about what we stood for in limited overs format, and that actually reflected in the kind of performances that we had. So, I mean, really good signs in terms of what Indian cricket has to offer in white ball cricket going years down the line. And I'm sure that this paves the way for a good platform to prepare for the ultimate 2027 World Cup because majority of these players are going to be seen in that World Cup. Maybe one or two players के ऊपर question mark है, and that is just we have to see what happens with them. But apart from that, 90% of the players are going to feature in the 2027 World Cup. So playing 24 ODIs against top quality teams, I think once again the planning is spot on, and hopefully that we get the job done in South Africa.
Yeah, because I remember this discourse as well. For a lot of fans, also this Champions Trophy win means a lot. 2017 ke jo hurt they, all of that is kind of solved. But the 2023 home World Cup loss, is still something that stays with them. So probably winning another ODI World Cup, if not at home, at least overseas, would kind of help the cause. But let's see, how that kind of happens. Let's not get too ahead of ourselves and just celebrate the Champions Trophy win at hand. But again, Sanjay, just coming back to the final, right? You did talk about Michael Bracewell, the kind of impact he had, with the bat and the ball. But let's also talk about Darren Mitchell, right? A lot of people felt that the kind of batting performance that came from him for a long period of time, New Zealand just did not register any boundaries. Do you think, again, the kind of knock that he played, his strike rate and everything, in hindsight, we look at it, we both think, the strike rate was less, it probably kind of helped India and not New Zealand as much. But what did you make of his knock? And do you somewhere think it just did not help New Zealand?
I think it's a very sensitive thing to talk about. I mean, I remember having a similar kind of conversation about KL Rahul's innings in the World Cup final all those years ago because this was the situation where many of us, including me, I would say, had criticized him because these are the kind of innings where if you play maybe more than 90 or 100 odd balls, especially in this format, you have to be there till the end. And if you don't, then I think the entire responsibility is on you if we lose. And that is exactly what happened with KL Rahul because he got out before the 45th over, and that actually took India's innings to nowhere. I mean, at one point we were looking, okay, if KL Rahul stays till the end, maybe India could target 260, 270. But then he got out before the 48th over, and then just we got nowhere to, like, we crawled our way to 240. And similarly with Daryl Mitchell, I think he got out at the wrong time. He was starting to show signs of hitting, but then he got out at the wrong time, and that makes his innings quite a bit of a problem for New Zealand in terms of their planning. But I think the difference between India's innings in Motera back then and New Zealand's inning was Michael Bracewell. Because what Michael Bracewell did, I think that saved some blushes for New Zealand and especially Daryl Mitchell for that matter. Because if that innings did not happen, if Bracewell did not do what he did in Dubai last night, then maybe we could have seen New Zealand collapse to even a less than a 200 target for that matter. And that could have made this final a cakewalk for India. But credits to Bracewell because he managed to save some blushes for them. But Mitchell's innings, I think, was really not ideal in terms of how it ended. But if had he stayed till the end, maybe we could be talking about different things.
Yeah, honestly, because you've seen the kind of capability that Darren Mitchell does have. So a very surprising knock. Let's call it a surprising knock and not label it anything else. But let's actually spare a thought to New Zealand, right? I think Virat Kohli too in the broadcast interaction spoke about how New Zealand is a team that consistently manages to perform well in spite of the kind of talent they have. So yeah, what did you make of New Zealand and even Rachin Ravindra winning the Player of the Tournament? Being from the losing side. I mean, New Zealand again giving us signs that hey, we are not just a side to be brushed aside. We can actually give you a competition and come up with great talents.
Definitely, yes. I think New Zealand were always and will always be regarded as the dark horse of ICC tournament. But now I think it's time to actually acknowledge the fact that they have to be promoted from this dark horse tag and needs to be promoted to the favorites tag, because the kind of performances that they have been doing, especially in ICC tournaments, I mean they're always there in the knockouts, they're always there in the semi-finals, and sometimes even in the finals for that matter. So New Zealand definitely is one of the most improved sides in the last decade, and they were always so near but so far. And as apart from that WTC final victory against India, it was always a case of heartbreak for them. But especially in this format, I mean, majority of the critics did not give any chance to New Zealand, just because of the fact that they are with a new, unexperienced captain in Mitchell Santner, and especially going into the final, losing Matt Henry, who was the leading wicket taker in this tournament. That was a big blow for them. But irrespective of that, they managed to put India under that pressure in the middle overs. I think that deserves to be given credit for, because India were really caught in that spin web in the middle overs, and that was a perfect situation for someone like a Matt Henry to actually come in and get those crucial wickets like he usually does. But fortunately for India, that wasn't the case, and we really had to dig deep and get ourselves through that phase to win us. But New Zealand definitely deserves credit, and I'm very sure that an ICC tournament victory is near the corner for them. Hopefully not against us if we are in the semis or final for that matter. But yeah, definitely a force to be reckoned with.
Absolutely, and the kind of talent that they've been producing as well, right? No doubts about it. And here's hoping New Zealand can find their mojo in, like the white ball and in limited overs format as well. Because in tests we've seen, they have like an unreal set of, performances to write home about. Defeating India at home 3-0 is something I think we will have to contend with and live with. But again, Sanchit, I think briefly in our conversation we did talk about Rohit Sharma, but let's talk about his captaincy, right? A lot of people feel he has this, let's call it interesting way of captaincy. Like sometimes he's very laid back, sometimes he's very like, gets very agitated and angry. But this Champions Trophy, like what really stood out for you? Like, did you feel like there were certain tactical moves of his, the aggression part of it, just, being very composed under pressure really help India's cause, and the two ICC titles clearly have a lot to say.
Definitely, as I think what really stood out for me in terms of Rohit Sharma's captaincy this time was that he was a mix of both, in terms of having being a laid back captain and also being aggressive in terms of when it was required. We all saw what happened with Kuldeep Yadav in that video with Rohit Sharma and Kohli. So I think he really does not like when players are laid back. He wants all the players to give at least 100% in terms of their efforts. But the thing that stood out for me, and I think that was a difference for India in terms of his captaincy, was how he actually handled the four spinners. Because very rarely you see teams playing four spinners. I mean, 40 overs of quality spin in a 50-over game. I mean, these are the things you would only hear about it and just laugh it off. Maybe if you heard about it 10 years ago, for that matter. But 40 overs of quality spin, it feels like a luxury, but it is very difficult to handle, because even if one spinner has a bad day, then that actually reflects upon on the other spinners around him, because that shows the spinner feels that okay, the conditions are not favoring us, so what to do. But the way that how we handle the four spinners, and how we handle the two seamers having to share overs between Shami and Pandya, and especially for someone like a Shami who was not at its 100% in terms of fitness, that having four spinners around him helped him in order to get through the tournament injury free. Because if he was asked to bowl 10 overs consistently, then we could have not seen Shami play the final, because it was very difficult to bowl in this Dubai kind of a heat. And how Rohit Sharma handled our bowlers, I think that stood out for me, because it looks easy on television, it looks easy on paper, but to do that in this kind of condition, especially in these kind of weather conditions, I would say it is very difficult. So I'm really happy that India went through the tournament undefeated, losing all the tosses, and most importantly, injury free for that matter.
Absolutely, coming out unscathed, no injuries, and all players, fit for their IPL teams as well. But Jay also goes on to add, similar to your point, that Rohit's captaincy has actually been spot on, left no margin for error, stuck with the same combination for almost the entirety of the tournament, which kind of made sense. You need a captain with aggression on field in crunch situations. Yes, Jay, we agree with you. And talking about Mitch Santner, He was complete opposite of Rohit. He goes on to say, even he had four spinners and didn't use them properly. Again, Sanchit, hindsight is a wonderful teacher, but did you also think the same that Mitchell Santner could have probably dealt with his bowlers better? And somewhere where India was just getting away with the game, he could have stifled it with introducing more spinners into the attack.
I think the first sign of panic was when Mitch Santner brought himself on in the power play when Rohit was going berserk. I think that was the first sign of panic in the New Zealand team, and especially the captain bringing him on. I think that was not in plans. I mean, having Mitch Santner to bowl to Rohit was not in plans. I think the original plan maybe was to save his overs for the Indian middle order, especially Virat Kohli and the rest of the players who are really good in terms of playing spin. But India played 3 or 4 overs of Mitch Santner in the power play without losing any wickets, and I think that really set the tone for us because then the job got pretty easier from the middle order because then they just had to take care of the part timers in Glenn Phillips and even Michael Bracewell for that matter. Yes, Bracewell did take Kohli's wicket, but apart from that, I think it was pretty easy for the middle order to go through. And yes, the scorecard shows that we lost 5 wickets for that. In that run chase, but majority of those wickets, I think 2 or 3 of their wickets was when the batsmen were trying to just go for the glory shot and just take the pressure off. But I'm sure that majority of the fans also felt that it was a pretty convenient and comfortable chase if we just ignore the hiccups that happen in the 20 or 30 or odd overs phase. So yeah, I think Santner could have used the four spinners effectively, just like how Rohit did, and that is what actually brought me to what I said earlier. I mean, having to manage four spinners is a big headache, and if you go wrong even once, then I think that just sets the tone for the opposition.
Absolutely, and due credit to Rohit Sharma for kind of marshalling his spinners so beautifully, bringing them at the right entry point, to ensure things kind of went in India's favor. But even Matt Henry's absence, right, was a bigger panic for them. I think pre-match we saw like every news portal reporting that Matt Henry is probably not playing the match, and then even in the broadcast, showing us signs of Matt Henry clearly being in pain and everything. And again, New Zealand did give the backup Nathan Smith just 2 overs, showing that they were already a pacer down. So you could see that sense of panic setting in New Zealand's camp, and clear, the result kind of not going in their favor. But anyways, guys, this is not us slandering New Zealand. They're a great side. They will definitely make a comeback. Uh, but again, Sanchit, just looking at India's campaign at large, I know we've spoken a lot about the final, and we will have moments that we will absolutely cherish. But India's campaign, right? You register wins versus Bangladesh, Pakistan, and New Zealand, and seamlessly just make it into the semi-finals, defeat Australia. Like it just feels like this dream, where someone's going to wake you up and be like, hey, this has not really happened. But again, did you feel like India was really tested across the tournament, and each win, just made us really strong heading into the final?
Definitely, yes. I mean, on paper and on scorecard, if you look at the scorecard, then many of us would say, "Yeah, India were not tested. It was a cakewalk to the final, and even in the final for that matter." But the real fans, the real experts know that it was really not a cakewalk. I mean, first of all, the conditions in Dubai. I mean, the critics can say whatever that they want, that the conditions and the situation suited India, but majority of the players did not want to play on these kind of tracks in Dubai because we played similarly back in 2021 T20 World Cup, and that backfired heavily. So India definitely did not want to play in these kind of conditions, and they would have loved playing in those conditions in Pakistan. And on top of that, losing all the tosses in the tournament. I mean, how often you see a team going unbeaten and winning the trophy for that matter after losing all the tosses in a tournament. I mean, this is the first instance, I would say. If there is anyone in the stats department in the comment section, I mean, you can check this fact out because this is really a dream run, as you rightly said. I mean, on paper it does look like India were not tested, but we were tested heavily, and especially from teams like New Zealand and even Australia for that matter. But we always had an answer. I mean, not just one player, but every match we had one or two players stepping up regularly, and it was always new player in regular cases. I mean, when we look back at the final, many people said that Kuldeep Yadav will not be kind of effective in the knockouts, but then he stepped up. He was the only missing link going into the final because apart from him, everyone stepped up in this tournament. It was just Kuldeep Yadav who was left to do what he was doing. I mean, against Australia, he had a off day. But I'm so glad that the management stuck with him into the final, going into the final, because any other team would have said, ki, okay, it's not working out for you. Maybe we would bring in someone else. Maybe we could try an extra seamer in Arshdeep Singh, and we would give you a rest. But Rohit Sharma and the entire management stuck with Kuldeep Yadav throughout, and boy, did the boy deliver. I mean, that spell to Rachin Ravindra and Kane Williamson, I think that set the tone. Losing Kane Williamson in that batting for New Zealand, I think that was the moment where they panicked, and maybe we won the trophy back there.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of key things, going in India's favor, and seldom, you have tournaments that are so spotless. Like, at least on paper, it looks spotless. But India's definitely had their fair share of tribulations that, as you rightly said, die-hard fans and experts will probably remember for the longest time. And again, I think in our comment section as well, you two had brought in about, Gautam Gambhir and the kind of coaching philosophy that he had came massively under the scandal after the BGT. I think if we start talking about it, एक पूरा episode शायद वही बात हो जाएगा. But I think the man's really redeemed himself with this ICC, trophy. But again, Sanjay, do you think it's important to look at Gautam Gambhir, the test coach, and the limited overs coach in like different breaths, because his performance as a test coach has been very underwhelming. Do you think it's time that India probably can consider like split coach philosophy, or do we still give Gigi his time to kind of find his groove and trust him to do his thing?
I think it's still too early with the Gautam Gambhir, the test coach, because yes, I mean whatever happened with New Zealand in that dreadful home series, I mean it was clearly not the coach's fault in terms of the management. I would say. I mean, New Zealand really were too good for us, especially their spinners, and our top order not performing, the middle order not clicking, and especially our spinners being taken for runs by their top order. I mean that was definitely not on the cards, and very rarely a coach can do anything in these kind of situations. So I think we were outbatted, outballed, and outfielded in that situation. And when we went to Australia, it was a team which was low on confidence. And that Perth victory was, I think, a moment where we thought that okay, it's time for India to be back. But then after that, it was just about players who were not really in good touch. Virat Kohli, I mean, going into the Test series was not in good touch. Rohit Sharma had his poor run of form in the last years. So it's really harsh to be critical about Gautam Gambhir, the test coach, because it is just 1 year into this run, and it is very easier to control the white ball team as it is to control the test cricket team. So maybe we could give him this World Test Championship cycle, which is going to start from July, and then after that we could reflect upon whether we need a change or not. So let Gautam Gambhir do what needs to be done in terms of planning and preparation, because we are going to resume in England. So we have about 3-4 months in the IPL to see what can be worked there. So after that we have home season with South Africa and West Indies coming here for two test matches each. So after that only then we could actually see what Gautam Gambhir wants to do. So till then I think it would be really harsh on to be critical about Gautam Gambhir, the test coach.
Yeah, no, fair. I think let's just hold our horses on this one and see how things kind of go. But it's easy to kind of jump the gun. At least in my case, I'm like, yeah, maybe we should consider a split coach philosophy. But in the Indian subcontinent, we have seen how sometimes it can prove to be very tricky with so many coaches and so many voices just coming in. But let's Darshan's comment. He goes on to say that the selection of pitches was probably the worst call
Yeah.
for India in that New Zealand series, giving a ranked turner put New Zealand's inferior spinners. Inferior spinners on par with us. A fair Darshan. Again, we're not delving into that horror. We're just celebrating India's Champions Trophy win. And Jay also goes on to add, I think, for Sanchit's Kuldeep point, that leg spinners have always been special for him, especially for a leggy fan like me. Watching a player like Kuldeep getting the batter bowled is a sight to be watched again and again. So yeah, India will definitely treasure Kuldeep Yadav, the jewel. We've seen him right from his under 19 days doing the kind of magic he's been doing. Fingers crossed he can keep up with this sort of a run, and India will eventually win an ODI trophy as well. But yeah, Sanjit, almost as we reach the end of our discussion as well, we've spoken about India's T20 World Cup win in 2024, this Champions Trophy win in 2025. Do you think India's kind of established themselves as undisputed white ball giants, or again, am I jumping the gun and we should just take it easy and not get too carried away with the emotion?
I think definitely we should be regarded as one of the best, if not the best, one of the best ODI sides that is playing around. and I'm not just talking about this particular tournament, but even since 2023, if you look at the record, if you look at our ICC record, we have just lost one match. And one match was washed out, I think, in Florida against Canada, if I'm not wrong, in the last T20 World Cup. But apart from that, we have won everything. Yes, of course, that one loss hurts the most because it came at the most worst possible situation in the final of 2023 World Cup, but that doesn't really take away the fact that India have been so dominant in white ball cricket. I mean, this kind of records are something which you only hear about in maybe cricket video games, or in dreamlands for that matter. So 23 wins and just one loss and one NR in the last 25 ICC matches is really a thing to behold, and I think we have to be talked upon as one of, if not the greatest. I would personally consider us as the best ODI, best white ball side right now, irrespective of, maybe you would argue that Australia are the ODI champions for that matter. But according to me, in terms of consistency, in terms of squad planning, and in terms of preparation for the next big thing, I think India has to be the best white ball cricket side right now, and that actually gives us confidence because next up is the T20 World Cup in India, and many of the experts are already saying that it's going to be a cakewalk for India because the kind of T20 squad that we have laid upon in the last 2 years or so. I mean, we have already seen those maniac playing those kind of shots in T20 cricket. That Abhishek Sharma innings in Wankhede. I mean, these are the kind of young guns that have actually lit up the stage in IPL, and now they are going to represent India in the World Cup in India. So I mean, we can only get more excited for that upcoming tournament. So these are the signs of a great white ball cricket, because you not only think about the present, you learn from the past and you prepare for the future. So this is what separates India and the rest, according to me.
Absolutely, Sanchit could not have put that better because, as you rightly said, we have such an exciting World Cup coming up later. And, the way India's kind of, I would say, laid the tracks and gotten all their fundamentals right with the kind of players shaping up. We have the IPL coming up and just so many things to look forward to in that regard. But let's take Jay's interesting fact as well. So he goes on to say that Virat's son is born. India wins an ICC tournament 4 months later. Rohit's son is born. India wins an ICC tournament after 4 months. KL Rahul and Athia Shetty are due in June. Asia Cup in September. So he's already giving us a hint of what we can possibly expect. And yeah, I think let's take Darshan's comment as well, which is actually a fair point. Something I wanted to ask you, that
This
it
is
was
good.
always infuriating, 1 year back to hear all the Indian cricket team achievements being tossed aside because trophy nahi hai and all of that. Grateful that the monkeys off the back at least now, and irrespective of what people have to say, ICC trophy win is an ICC trophy win, right?
This is exactly what I tweeted earlier on my personal profile, that it was so good to get that monkey off our back, because I always felt, even before the 2023 World Cup, that just one ICC trophy victory could actually set the stage for India going forward, because it was just about that mental block, that we've always been a great ODI side, we've always been a great T20 side, we've always been there in the semis and the finals, and most of the times in the last decade or so. But it was just that mental block कि यार इस semi-final and final में आके हारना है. The fear of losing used to come up, and we saw that in the 2023 final as well. But the moment we broke that jinx in Barbados last year, I think many of us felt that yes, this is the start, this is the thing we really wanted the most, and that actually elevated these players who played in the semi-finals and finals to play those kind of free shots, because they knew that okay, to jinx to khatam ho gaya hai, the monkeys off our backs, now we can play how we usually do without worrying for the fact that it's a semi-final or it's a final. And I think that was a big thing, because this team, this white ball cricket team, has it in them to win, I mean, almost all of the tournaments in the next 5 years, just because of the quality and the squad depth that they have. So it was so good that we got the monkey off our back, because if you look at the ICC schedule in the next 10 years or so, there is an ICC event in, I think, almost every year till 2020 till 2031 World Cup for that matter. So maybe if we have this discussion, if we have this podcast 6 years later ahead of the ODI World Cup in India, then we could be having a different conversation, maybe regarding India as one of the greatest side for that matter. I'm not going too deep, but yeah, that can be a possibility.
Definitely exciting signs, Sanchit. The fact that you say 6 years later, and we still have the kind of talent who can carry this team, not just carry the team, in fact, dominate for the team is just speaks volumes, right, about the kind of talent we've had. For the longest time, people felt, yeah, IPL khel ke, most of the overseas players, gain exposure and experience. It's not helping the Indian players, which is entirely untrue. There could not be anything more wrong than that. It's really nice to see, leagues like this also help the growth of players. We have actually a very chatty comment section, so probably let's take a few more comments before we draw the curtains. Jay goes on to add that imagine winning the WTC and the World Cup in 2027 with Virat and Rohit signing off, being the only players to win all major ICC tournaments. I
Ah,
think there was a stat, right, that Virat and Rohit have won like four ICC tournaments. I think the most is Ricky Ponting with five.
five.
Sanchit, again, just putting on a very hypothetical scenario here. If this happens, do you think it's the perfect fitting conclusion to this duo and their ODI careers?
Definitely. Yes. I mean, these are the things you talk about and link it with fairy tale endings, Bollywood classic endings. So if this happens, I mean, what more can we ask for? ऐसे बोल सकते हैं कि यार life is fulfilled for almost a billion Indians for that matter. But it's still a long way. But I would say that irrespective of whether that happens or not, Virat and Rohit have already established themselves as the greats of world cricket, not just in one day, not just in T20, but across cricket for that matter. So we should finally be able to celebrate whatever amount of cricket that they have left. Because as I mentioned earlier, and even you agreed to that, we never know when the end would come. I mean, it could happen on a random day in October, on a random evening in September. We never know. We can't really plan for these kind of things. So all we can do right now is that celebrate these two players, celebrate the legacy, celebrate and cherish the memories and whatever that they have to offer in the next 2 years or 24 months for that matter, because this is a time to celebrate them. And we should, and my message to everyone who loves to engage in social media trolls, fan wars, toxicity for that matter, now it's time to actually lay down your phone and just celebrate and enjoy these two players play for India and even in the IPL for that matter. Because एक बार जब खत्म हो जाएगा ना, then you will realize that यार it should have kept on going. So I feel that with these players getting those deserving ICC trophies for them. Yes, the World Cup is still remaining, but we should not actually give them that undue pressure already, because there is still time for that particular tournament. But all we can do as fans, whenever we turn up in stadiums or whenever we turn up on social media, whenever these two players are playing, we should give them all our love instead of engaging in social media wars for that matter. Rohit versus Kohli. I mean, these are the things which should be avoided going forward, because these two players have given India so much in the last decade or so. Now it's only fitting that we give them back all the love in the last leg of their careers.
Honestly, Sanchit got goosebumps there because imagining an India, like an ODI setup without Virat and Rohit, these are heroes we grew up watching. I'm very tempted to say Shikhar Dhawan as well. Would have loved to see him be a
Yeah.
part of the setup in some capacity. But anyways, that would take us to another tangent as well. But again, let's take a few comments, Sanchit. I think a lot of your friends and fans are here, So let's probably, hear what they have to say. He goes on to say, great point. I don't know that they'd have made the call to play four spinners if they were operating on a similarly conservative
Exactly. Yes.
mentality.
Absolutely, yes. I think that was the difference, and this is where somewhere you have to give credit to Rohit Sharma's captaincy. The boldness, I think, was the difference for India in the last decade. We were never too aggressive in terms of getting those calls. We were never too bold in terms of our selections and calls, especially before the game and after the game and during the game. And that is what actually dropped us from having those chances to win ICC trophies. But I completely agree with what Darshan had to say. Playing four spinners was a sign of confidence that yes, we are ready to play bold. We are ready to do what it takes to win ICC trophies.
And yeah, Darshan, we spoke about this point a little earlier in detail. So, just check that as well once the stream is done. Pratmesh also goes on to add that it may be too soon to say this. This is just the start of the golden era of Indian cricket with a mix of experience and youngsters to have. If Virat Kohli's post-match interaction gave us an indication of that, the way he was, just talking about Shubman Gill, the youngsters in the team willing to learn, the kind of team environment that has been built, it clearly, kind of refutes all the rumors of, there being some sort of a discord or problems in the team, during the BGT. I think journalists were just having fun, or people who call themselves journalists were, just making up stories to kind kind of put this Indian team down, but clearly seems like the team is actually doing really well. Darshan also goes on to say that small shout out to New Zealand also. Santner and company showed mad resilience to make a fight out of what
Definitely.
could have been a very one sided final. Would not have minded if Bracewell was the player of the match. Fair point. I think Sanjit also spoke very passionately about, Michael Bracewell kind of saving the blushes for New Zealand there. And let's also take this comment that Jay says. Last but not the least, Hardik Pandya's redemption is unlimited. Had this man not been fit for the tournament, we would have not been able to
Yeah.
play for spinners. The way he's turned things around is outstanding. Again, Sanjit, your thoughts on Hardik Pandya, the kind of last few months that he has had. That IPL of last year is, I think, something he would definitely want to forget. But the few months that have, happened after that, absolutely stuff of dreams, right?
Definitely, as I think Mumbai Indians just posted a post about Hardik Pandya just after the match, where it was a graphic showing Hardik Pandya, and the caption was "Clutch Pandya." I think that defines what Hardik Pandya really is. I mean, he's always the kind of player who never let pressure get off to him very easily. I think even KL Rahul spoke for that matter. I think there was a funny interview after the match where he said that KL was absolutely him himself. I'll not like say that word, but he was actually worried about at that stage. And Pandya was in his zone. Pandya was in his groove. He was not bothered about the pressure. He was not bothered about the situation. He knew exactly what he wanted to do, and he delivered. Similarly, was the case. He was waiting against Australia. He was waiting for the spinners to come. He was waiting for Adam Zampa to ball just one bad delivery to tonk him out for a six, and that is exactly what he did. So Hardik Pandya is the kind of player who does not really feel pressurized, and that these are the kind of players who elevate you as a side from a trophy contender to serial trophy winners. And he's exactly what we missed out in 2023 World Cup later stages, especially in the final for that matter, because he's someone who can turn the game on its heads with his ball, with his bat, and even on the field when it's required. So we are so blessed and so glad to have someone like a Hardik Pandya in our side.
Absolutely, and I'm kind of surprised we haven't spoken about Akshar Patel, man. I know someone in the comments will bring this up, but the man continues to, define clutch again, right? Every single final we see him, step up, do something through the tournament as well. I know it's not those, massive performances like 100 or a fiver or something, but it's the small, impactful performances that creates the ripples for a win, Sanchit. Again, your thoughts on Akshar Patel, and let's just, get him out of our system and talk about this man.
Definitely, yes. I think Akshar Patel is someone who always goes about his things quietly, silently, and very plays a very underrated knock. And I think there were few tweets which I saw on social media after the final where it mentioned that Akshar Patel was the kind of a player which actually allowed India to win those crucial matchups. I mean, experts and I think we all agree that we all love to talk about matchups going ahead into matches. Who will tackle the spin threat of Mitchell Santner? Who will tackle the left arm or right arm off spin threat? And that is where someone like an Akshar Patel was actually in the side for. He's not a traditional top order batter, top order left handed batter, but the kind of position that he was promoted for, he did deliver those kind of innings really well. I think that was the difference for India because we never really allowed the opponent spinners to get into the game and settle down just because we have someone like an Akshar Patel in our middle order. As I remember, I mean, it was a dead rubber kind of a game against New Zealand in the league stage, but we lost 3 wickets early, and very rarely we lost early wickets in this tournament. That was the only game I think we lost early wickets in this tournament, and that is where someone like an Akshar Patel stepped up and performed well in terms of with his bat. In that partnership with Shreyas Iyer, if I'm not wrong, to get India to a very stable position before Hardik Pandya and the rest got us to that 240 mark. So Akshar definitely played his role really well. I mean, we could go talking about his batting all day, but we should also appreciate the fact that he's also there as a bowler and he took care of the situation. I mean, playing four spinners was always going to be a difficult task, but Akshar Patel with his line, consistent length, and also his underrated form of bowling economically. That is what something we really want bowlers to do. I mean, we don't really know how long we have of Ravindra Jadeja as a cricketer left, maybe 2 3 years for at max. So we really needed someone like Jadeja to take over the mantle, and I think Akshar Patel is already there. So we as Indian fans should not worry about this a little bit. So definitely Akshar Patel has to be one of those underrated gems in across format, I would say, not just in white ball cricket but across formats.
Yeah, man has clearly shown on multiple occasions that he's someone you can really depend on and get his job. But again, just continuing the discourse on Hardik Pandya, I think Jay goes on to add in our comments that the ODI World Cup was lost. Hardik Pandya injured mid-tournament, announced captain for Mumbai. Team was shattered inside. Fans were raging. This is something, that was for everyone to see. Coming this year, Hardik Pandya is a two-time ICC tournament winner with being the hero of the final in the T20 World Cup. Wankhede is going to be behind him and the team now, right? Just talk about a turnaround. It's going to be very interesting to see how the fans receive him, right?
Absolutely, yes. I think this is the kind of situation which actually makes a good player into a legend of the player. And Hardik Pandya, with everything that he had to endure in the past 12 months, not just what was happening on the field, but what was happening off the field as well, especially in his personal life with all the situation that was going around him. I mean, it is very difficult to go through those kind of situations and act like everything is normal. I mean, we all consider players as machines, but very very rarely we think about the fact कि यार वो लोग भी इंसान ही है, वो लोग भी humans ही है. So very rarely we think about these aspects of players for that matter. But Hardik Pandya, whatever that he had to endure after coming back from an injury, and the entire Mumbai Indians captaincy fiasco that happened with him getting booed across the Wankhede, and then the redemption happened in the 2024 World Cup where he bowled that final over and won us the World Cup and broke the trophy jinx. And since then, he never really looked back. So I completely agree with what Jehan had to say here. This is the kind of situation where players win the fans back, and I'm very sure that come the IPL, the entire Wankhede crowd who actually booed him are going to chant Hardik Hardik at their very loudest. Come the first match, so it is going to be electric going into the IPL. And not just Hardik Pandya, I would also like to say there is one kind of a player who was a kind of a villain in terms of fans' mind, and he redeemed himself, and it is his counterpart, KL Rahul. And I'm very sure, and it is a message from me to everyone who is going to travel during the IPL and watch Delhi Capitals match. If it's possible, just give this player a standing ovation whenever he comes out to bat or whenever he comes out to field, because this is the kind of a player who was abused day in, day night, and was always criticized, even though it was not really his fault. But the kind of performances that he put up in this tournament, where he showed that it is India above anything for me, I think it deserves to be praised. So if I'm going for the MIDC game at Wankhede, I'm definitely going to give KL Rahul a standing ovation. And I'm sure that majority of us would agree for that fact. So these are the players that we should really cherish going into the IPL.
Absolutely. Yeah, just really excited to see that, Sanchit. Like, you are doing this whole standing ovation, and a lot of fans also, following suit because the man obviously deserves it. And yeah, Darshan, we kind of did talk about KL Rahul a little earlier in our conversation. In all fairness, a lot of people felt, he should have batted slightly higher up in that batting order, like at number five. They're like, why is Akshar Patel coming ahead of him? But KL Rahul clearly owned that number six spot and kind of, diluted all the conversation and chat about why is Rishabh Pant not a part of the setup. So, big ups to KL Rahul.
This actually shows that if your name is has Rahul in it, then you are bound to be selfless. You are bound to do anything what the team really wants you to do. And I'm very glad that KL Rahul took up that mantle, took up that responsibility, and did it perfectly. So it is so good that the entire fans are now backing KL Rahul, the player, KL Rahul, the athlete for that matter. And it is going to be an exciting time. And hopefully we see the best of KL Rahul for years to come going forward, because that is exactly what we need, and it's going to be an exciting times.
Yeah, because recently I think Star made this whole segment of 10 years of KL Rahul in international cricket, and I'm like, where did this 10 years go? I hope the next 10 years are one that's filled with a lot of memories and trophies, because the man really is that capable. A lot of comments also coming in for KL Rahul that me being one of the biggest haters stood up and applauded for that guy, forgiven according to Jay. And he also says that KL Rahul finishing the match with a six against Australia just pretty much sums up that sort of a fairy tale comeback. KL Rahul isn't a very expressive person, but
Yeah,
that
I was just going to
shriek
say
and that
that.
you could see right how much it meant to him. Yeah, what a
Exactly.
player.
Exactly. I mean, KL Rahul is someone who really wanted to have this kind of a tournament, and I'm sure that majority of us saw that interview after the World Cup final where he was asked about his thoughts about that World Cup final, and I think he was asked a question whether if you had a time machine, what would you rather do? And he answered that he would go back to that day and change what had happened during that time. So that actually shows how much of that match, how much of that tournament actually impacted him mentally for that matter. But to come out of that, to deliver what he'd actually delivered in the next 2 years for that matter, it's absolutely remarkable. And winning fans over, winning haters over, turning haters into fans. I would not say haters, but turning critics into fans. I think this is a sign of a great, great legendary player. So if KL Rahul continues to keep on doing what he's done, I think we would be celebrating a great, great player to for years to come.
Absolutely. Fingers crossed he continues to, just grow from strength to strength. But yeah, Sanchit, as we reach the end of our discussion, do you have any last and final thoughts? We have the IPL coming up, so many exciting things off record. We were talking about just the amount of cricket we have to consume and how, we just need to savor this Champions Trophy win, because by the time we look here and there, the IPL is going to come, fan rivalries and all of that. So yeah, your last and final thoughts?
I mean, I would just keep it simple. I mean, as a cricket fan, I think it's an exciting times. I mean, obviously, as an Indian fan, we are overjoyed. We have already celebrated in the last 24 hours or so. And I think the celebration should not stop. I think the celebration should keep on going because the WPL final is just happening in this particular week. And then the IPL is going to resume. So in terms of celebration, I'm not talking about celebrating as fans, but I'm talking about celebrating these players. I mean, in the IPL, you're going to see the same heroes who actually won us the ICC trophy play for different team. So as fans, irrespective of whichever team that you support, I mean, yes, banters and all, it's fine in terms of hyping up your team rivalries. But we should all respect for the fact that these are the players who won us those trophies. So as fans, we should not really cross our limits in terms of toxicity, in terms of going and engaging in those fan wars. Banters are all fine. I mean, banters, who doesn't love banters? Who doesn't love sledging? But we should not really cross our limits and go on abusing the players during the IPL. I mean, obviously, in the IPL, you see these kind of things happening because of heat of the moment. So, as fans, it is our responsibility to not cross the line and just keep on enjoying the next few months of exciting cricket that is set to come till June. And then once again, we'll be back together before the England series, the big one in June. So till then, I just want us to enjoy whatever that is going to happen. So yeah, exciting times.
Yeah, Sanchit, certainly. I think as Indian fans, and I think just fans of cricket, we definitely have a lot to look forward to. And yeah, Akash, hi. If you're catching up with the podcast now, do tune in to the rest of it. Like once the stream is done, we have a lot of positive comments coming in. Jay goes on to add that I'd love to be a part of the show someday. Some real great conversations. Loved interacting with you guys. Likewise, Jay, I think our conversation was heightened because of your comments and all of you guys chipping in. So thank you so much for that. Darshan also goes on to say, thanks, guys. Great podcast as always. Thank you so much for that. And yeah, Sanchit, I'd like to thank you as well for, taking your time. I sent you the message and within like 3 microseconds, you replied with, yes, I'm coming on the podcast. So yeah, never in the back foot is always, lucky to have your thoughts and perspectives. You're always welcome. So yeah, here's hoping we can collaborate a lot more in this very exciting cricket season that's coming up. So yeah, Sanchit, thanks again, and thanks to all our viewers. Those catching us later can share your comments in the comment section. We will make sure to address it. And yeah, thank you so much, guys. Cheers. Take care.